health and reduce risk of disease, especially cancer. For more information, go to orallycormier.com.
Looking for more love, joy, and purpose in your life? Lisa Eve is here to guide you. Through intuitive support, healing, and soulful travel, she empowers you to embrace self-love as the key to happiness. Explore her book, The Love Channel: Finding Your Way to Happiness, available on Amazon. And find daily inspiration at thehappychannel.com. Start living your most radiant, joy-filled life today.
I'm Tristan, a shaman, astrologer, and human design reader. I help unravel spiritual ideas to create change and growth in your life. Whether you are just beginning or need a knowledgeable best friend with the next phase of your journey, I'm here to help. Think of me as your pragmatic shaman bestie. I work with high-vibe, lovely people like yourself in personalized sessions that will leave you with a sense of clarity that energizes you to make impactful change. Connect with me, your pragmatic shaman bestie, at musingsandmodalities.com.
Ready for healing that's raw, real, and actually helpful? Hi, I'm Faye, host of Soul Unfiltered, the podcast that ditches the spiritual woo-woo and dives deep into grief, energy, intuition, healing, and emotional truth. Join me for sacred storytelling, practical healing tools, and soul-level insight. Subscribe now and tune in to Transformation Talk Radio every fourth Wednesday of each month.
Welcome to Our Soul Whisper with Kathy Belmont and co-host Dr. Pat, a sacred space for self-discovery, healing, and transformation. At the heart of Our Soul Whisper is the sacred truth. When we pause and listen inward, the soul always speaks. This show offers a safe, empowering space where those whispers are heard, honored, and lovingly guided into full expression. Each episode invites you to be curious about yourself and the reality you're in, while gently reminding you that you are exactly where you need to be. Let today's message settle in your heart. Maybe even journal about it. And if something resonates, peace, clarity, or insight, pass it along to someone whose soul might be calling for the same. Keep listening inward. Your soul knows the way. Our Soul Whisper starts now. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Dr. Pat. I get to take this beautiful ride with the most amazing holistic coach. And, just to say a few words, if you're interested in about what we're talking about today, please go visit Kathy's website. I just want to make you all know right now that this is a place you can go, OurSoulWhisper.com, and there's a way for you to work with her because the topic we're about to talk about today that Kathy has brought forward is so seriously important. The inner weight you were never meant to carry and how to let it go. I mean, Kathy, this episode hit me hard. I got to tell you, last night, I don't know what hit me. I think I felt the pressure in supporting a friend going through a legal situation. And I think I carried a lot of that emotion with me. And I tell you, I had to go upstairs and go to bed at like 2:00 in the afternoon. So I hope you can give us some solutions here.
Yeah. Hi, Dr. Pat, and hi, everyone.
Hi,
And Dr.
Kathy.
Pat, it sounds like you took care of yourself in that moment.
Oh, thank
So
you.
Good,
Yeah.
good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really wanted to look at this kind of invisible mental load, I'll call it, where, when we look at the stress in our lives, I think a lot of us think about, those to-dos. We got all these things to do. We have all this to do in so many hours in a day. And yet there's this mental load we're carrying right up here. And it's one thing to say, okay, I got to do this, do it and let it go. But it's storage up here. And so we're trying to remember everything. We're trying to anticipate problems. We're trying to manage our emotions and saying, okay, what's next? What's next? Living into a future that hasn't even come yet. And so people are starting to experience this emotional and cognitive fatigue, where we got this brain fog. Our creative juices aren't flowing. Emotionally, we're disconnected. We may become irritable, and also we may become numb emotionally. And so it was interesting when I was doing research for this episode, it led me to Brene Brown. And she's such a brilliant woman, and I have listened to her work in the past, but as I listened to some of her work, she talks about how this overfunctioning in our lives can become this form of protection. And she shared in her own life how she used this armor, this coat of armor, to really protect her from feeling these feelings of shame, fear, everything that we don't want to feel. And it was interesting. I revisited her Power of Vulnerability TED Talk. And she talks about how when we try to numb the fear and the shame, we're not just numbing those, we're numbing that joy that we want to come through. We're numbing those feelings of gratitude. So we're numbing it all. And that can lead us to not feeling seen, heard, and can lead us to loneliness. And that's kind of really what we're looking at too. So it's this heavy load and how it's disconnecting us, how we're not being seen, what we're carrying, and then feeling lonely.
Yeah.
And so it's looking at that and just bringing awareness to that.
Yeah. I have to say this is so relevant right now because we don't like to talk about getting past the COVID years. But what's happening, especially now when we speak to people and we try to understand where they are and where they're going, it's almost like they're experiencing PTSD from it. Because why? 1 minute, you couldn't be around people. And it's almost like somebody flips a switch and we're supposed to be normal. And, what we're talking about here is we have repressed so many things to show up in a world that is so fast paced that they need to change the definition of AI, right? Because part of this is we're not doing IA. We're not doing individual attention. We're not doing that part, right? Isn't that why you're talking about this today?
It is. And that, it's a good point as far as COVID, those COVID months brought us an opportunity to go inward. However, a lot of us were feeling disconnected. And so we found ways to connect alone. And so then we're coming out and say, okay, we can meet and eat in restaurants again, but where did we process any of that? And so there was a great quote that I brought up by Carl Jung, and he says, loneliness doesn't come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. And so, it's having this full life and then kind of still feeling alone. Looks great on the outside, but how are we feeling inside? And it's not just personal. I mean, when you look across the country, the American Psychological Association did this study in 2025, and they reported that over half of the US adults were feeling emotionally disconnected. That's a lot of people. Feeling disconnected, feeling isolated, alone, lacking compassion, feeling left out. And so,
that's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
I want to go back over that number.
Yeah.
50%.
Over half. Yeah. Yeah. So we're walking around, living these full lives with the technology, the geopolitical concerns, everything going around us. And yet, what's going on in the inner? Are we paying attention to that? Are we being our emotional advocate for that? Just wanted to share a quick story. I had a QHHT session this past weekend, and I was working through a block that was preventing me from receiving. And so when I got into it, I realized that I had experiences in my life where I was asking for something, requesting something that was important to me, and I got a no. And you'd think, okay, well, there's the block. You asked and you didn't get it. However, it went further. It went further to, I didn't have the experience of having my feelings be heard. Why was it important to me? And just the whole communication around the no. And so when I look at the block and then I look at what I came up with, there's no way that my rational mind would have put that together. But my subconscious, my inner knowing said, there's something here. And it created an awareness for me. I was holding on. And from those decisions that we make, we live into those. When I received that no with not a lot of validation, I went to, okay, my feelings don't matter. Why bother speaking up? What difference am I going to make? And then we live from those. And so that's why bringing awareness, I always go back to that, bringing awareness to yourself and what's going on. And so again, it's not this weight that we're carrying so much. It's the fact that we're doing it alone and we're not allowing it to be seen. And Dr. Pat, I think you have your mute on.
I think the thing that I wanted to talk to you about is the ripple effect of this,
Yeah.
because you're laying this out really beautifully, but there is a ripple effect of it. And I think you already did it. We've already talked about loneliness, which people relate to as an individual tendency, right?
Mhm.
And then we now have the AMA
Mhm.
survey.
Mhm.
And, I will tell you one thing, knowing I've done a few of these studies, and I will tell you one thing, that is a low number because people don't report. It's like asking somebody, how much do you drink? And, they say one glass of wine a week. And the reality is they drink a bottle a night.
Yeah.
So what you really zoomed in on, but I want to talk to you about this other thing, right? You're sharing your experience.
Mhm.
I don't like the word no either.
Mhm. Mhm.
But
Yeah.
let's talk about how everything gets intertwined.
Mhm.
Families, responsibilities, right? Everything comes together. And yet there's a sense of loneliness which points to a gap. And that's what I don't think we're talking about. And people don't know how to talk about that, Kathy. I mean, I tried to sit down with somebody not too long ago and just say, you know what? I don't know why I feel so lonely. Can you just put your video game down for 5 minutes? I only see you once. Yeah.
Right.
But then I'm accused of being like a whiner. Like, do you understand? How do we discover this language about carrying this and the need to be seen? Because it doesn't just go away.
No, and that's where you to come into importance of speaking, in the video game example, you were feeling there was a disconnect there and you just wanted to connect. And it's a way of asking. It's funny, I always joke about it's maybe not always what you say, it's how you say it. But it's just kind of joking aside, it's more of what's important to me here. I really just want to connect here, and I feel a disconnect. If you could just look me in the eyes for a moment. And it's trusting ourselves and it's loving ourselves to be able to go to that place. A lot of it, though, is we don't even know we can go to that place because we're so in it. And that's where listening to shows like this, bringing awareness to what's going on inside of you. Are you having trouble sleeping? Are you, what's going on to where you feel this disconnect? And are you interested enough in your own life to figure it out? I love going to the simple because when I get into the muck, I need something simple to pull me out. So I always love this idea of you look in a mirror. And you look in a mirror and you really don't expect to see anything different than what it's reflecting back to you. So if I'm frowning or smiling or making a funny face, that's what I'm going to get. It's the same thing in life. If we don't like what we're seeing on the outside, if our life is feeling, go inside and just start discovering. And there's layers and layers and layers, and it's not going to be figured out in a day. However, that's where that journey starts. Going inside and just asking yourself a question, a simple question, what is going on? And then allowing yourself to slow down enough to get that answer or get something and say, isn't that interesting? Let me think about that. So, a lot of it's bringing into awareness all this stuff that we're carrying and how am I feeling and where is this disconnect? And what can I let go? What am I, are we being over responsible? Are we taking on stuff that we don't have to? That's the stuff that I'm talking about where we don't have to carry it. What's your own stuff? What are you wanting in a situation? You can say, yes, I can do this. And you know what? That's as far as I can go. What's behind that need to say, oh yeah, I'm going to take on even more? Is it guilt? Is it that feeling of responsibility? Is it a belief you had as a kid that I have to be the responsible one and take care of everything? Well, maybe it's time to revisit that belief and maybe, change it a bit to see if it works better for you. So,
But you're right. You got to start with the question. And I love the idea of looking in the mirror and having a conversation with yourself. There's no better way to do that. Now, of course, what I've learned is I love Zoom because I pull up my Zoom and I have this big conversation with myself. I record it. And then I go back to hear what myself said to myself. Now, for those of you out there that think I've lost it, no, I have not. It is a technique and approach, but it's the same thing Kathy is saying. If it's really difficult for many of you to stand in the mirror to ask yourself with love those questions, you have to ask Kathy. The other thing that's so important, sometimes you can't do it by yourself. And this is where coaching comes in.
Yeah.
I have found when I'm in that place, I have a spiritual gap. And if I don't talk to my coach, I just go, what is the term? It's like a dog chasing its tail, except you're not happily chasing it. You're chasing it to exhaustion, right?
Yeah. You're in that mental loop of trying to figure it out. Yeah, and that's where spiritual life coaching can become so powerful because it really creates that space for you to come in and let it go. It's a place where you're seen, you're allowed, you can give yourself permission to talk about what's really there. Like, let's get to the crux of it and allow yourself to come to that awareness. And I came to this too. It's becoming aware, but it's also slowing yourself down so you can see that. And it's, again, like we said, kind of separating what's yours and what's not. What's that over responsibility meaning or this over functioning? And it's letting go of those expectations, these emotional responsibilities and letting it go. Like, if you're a caretaker, if you're, even with families, what can we let go without feeling guilty of?
Yeah.
Where are we expending ourselves where we're not really able to be fully with others anyway? We think we are, but if we're not full ourselves, we don't really have too much to give.
No. I mean, I love that we're talking about this because, for most of my life, I didn't have a clue about any of it. And then when I walked into the rooms of recovery, they hit you right up between the head with spiritual nature of how a spiritual practice or understanding a spiritual nature and what to give away to the God of your understanding. I say the God of your understanding because that's going to be, God is, goodness on demand for so many people. Whatever that means to you is a full moon coming out tonight. Give it to the full moon. But aren't these some of the things once we're aware, we come to the realization, I'm going to surrender here because this is out of my wheelhouse. This is out of my control. Isn't that part of the guidance you get in spiritual coaching to know when to hold them and when to fold them?
Most definitely. And, it's coming to that point where it's just, the cost of holding on to all this stuff isn't paying out anymore. It's just not. And so you you get to a point where you're like, I've done everything. I've gotten to this point. I've done everything. I've thought everything. I've done this. What is going on? And that's when I reach out. That's when I get my support. And so it's spiritual life coaching. And I love that goodness on demand. I love that. Because when we say spiritual, again, just to remind people, it's whatever that is to you. It's whatever that goodness on demand is for you.
Yeah.
And it's bringing that piece in to remind you. You're not really disconnected. It's remembering. It's getting back to that place, slowing down and saying, yes, when it comes down to it, this is what I can tap into. And that's where that building that self-trust to be able to say, my friend, I want to talk to you. Please put your phone down. Can we have a 5-minute conversation? And so it's really allowing us maybe what got us through those months of isolation to realize we're connected again and we can connect in a new way. It was an opportunity that I tried to take advantage of to connect with myself and then to bring it out.
Yeah.
And so it's just that support to be able to get to that place where you can let go, a safe space where, and I don't give answers. I'll have clients say, what do you think? And it'll be very creative and colorful. And I have to give it back to them and say, well, I don't know. What do you think about it? Because I don't know your answers. And I go in with a belief that my clients are whole and complete and they have the answers there. I'm a guide and I use my training to know what to ask, where to shift, that kind of thing. But you have the answers and I have no idea where my client's going to go. I may think I do. Oh yeah, they're going down this road and then it goes left. And I'm thinking, okay, Kathy, good learning moment. Yeah. Another reason not to assume and not to lead or give my input because it's not helpful. I don't have the belief that it's helpful.
Yeah.
You, the client, have the answers.
I want to ask you about this because part of this and part of the work that you do, but let's just take a moment if we could, because we're talking about a lot of things that are showing up for people in the world and that we believe we have to carry the whole load. And I think that gets us back to the conversation where we started, right? Which is the inner weight you were never meant to carry and how to let go. That's what we're talking about today. Yeah. It was very clear to me when I walked in those rooms, Kathy, that the word God could not come out of my mouth in a really positive way. And I don't have enough time in the show. Folks can tune in shows that I've done on recovery about what the journey's like, if they like. But mostly what it's about, and I will tell you this, and maybe you can talk to it. Sometimes what it feels like when you're working with a coach, like I was a spiritual coach, it's like the hand that reaches out to you that you can then reach back out to and know you're going to get help. You're going to get help in lifting up. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. And it's a beautiful image. It is that. I was thinking this morning, I've lived a full life and I've let go of a lot. And I received a lot of help throughout my life and I reached out my hand. I made that phone call in the, late at night hours, not knowing who was going to answer and how I would be, accepted. And it's that reaching out, it's taken that courage to reach out and to trust that another hand is going to be there to hold yours. And that's what it is. It's a relationship. It's a partnership. It's a deep respect for who you are and who you are as a soul and what you have to contribute to this world. I've lived through some hard knocks and maybe some easy ones, and I've always had support along the way. There was always a part of me that had that hope, that knew something when I couldn't see it. And it's being it's having that courage and that love enough for yourself to go there. And I'm definitely have that open hand, that open heart, and that love and respect for you as a human. And
You know,
what-
we've talked
what
about a
you're
lot
dealing
of
with.
things today, and I want to just have you go over some of the shifting, some of the things that we referenced today, you really to remind people of what they could do. And I would love to know your closing message, because I think for somebody like me, the hardest thing that I ever learned to do was to ask for help. I'm a work in progress, but also want you to know that when I went back to my friend and I apologized and made amends and said that wasn't right for me to do that to you. I should have asked you, Joe, what was going on? How could I support you right now? But I didn't. So walk us through what you want to leave us with today.
Yeah, I want to start with it's a step. It's a step, taking little steps and pieces. And so I just want to invite everybody to just take a moment and to notice what you're holding on to right now. And then allow yourself to imagine if you could begin just to set a small part of that down, what would your life be like? We're not asking you to set the whole thing down. Consider just maybe a little bit and see how that feels. That's where it starts. And that's where it starts. And that's where it becomes manageable.
Wow. If you want help, everybody, especially from, Kathy's amazing spiritual coach, holistic coach. Kathy, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? And thank you for this topic today. It's so very important.
Yeah, and thank you for conversing with me today. arsawhisper.com. My website, everything is there, and my email is there as well. arsawhisper@gmail.com.
And I want to just say to everybody out there, I know that what we've talked about today is difficult. It's hard to look in the mirror, so don't look in the mirror, but to hit the pause button, go to some place that's quiet, doesn't matter where you go, and have a conversation with yourself. And if you find that you have more than one item that you think about where you think, I cannot handle this myself, reach out, put your hand out. Kathy's hand will be there. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Our Soul Whisper with Kathy and Dr. Pat. Tune in every first and third Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Take a moment now to breathe in and reflect on today's message. If it brought you peace, clarity, or insight, let it settle in your heart and maybe even journal about it. Remember to like and share this episode with someone who's ready to listen within. May our soulful echoes ripple outward, awakening awareness and deep remembrance. If this show touched something within you, share it. Let's create a world where most of us pause, listen inward, and allow our light to shine. Visit OurSoulWhisper.com for more.